Aloha and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us once again as we look at power in partnership, how to rekindle connection, grow conscious partnership, and focus on what matters most. Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to someone you may already be familiar with. She's quite an accomplished speaker, and I've certainly seen her gorgeous brick back wall on many talks before, and her lovely, lovely smile. Her presence just transcends the miles here as we connect in this virtual way. I'd love to introduce Nikki Myers, an acclaimed, accomplished speaker and teacher, and just really bringing in the embodied presence through being a somatic practitioner and the founder of Y12SR. Did I get that right, Nikki?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. That is the art and science of yoga and the 12-step recovery and how to blend those two very important pieces, which is why Nikki was at the top of my list for presenters on this program as I braid the addictions recovery, the contemplative practices, and the importance of relationship help. So it is my honor and privilege to welcome Nikki, and as we do, I'd love to invite all of us to just settle into this moment. If you're willing and able to lower your gaze or close your eyes for a moment, we'll just take 3 conscious breaths together, inhaling all that has already transpired up to this point, and exhaling, letting that go. Inhaling any aspirations, dreams, desires for the future. And exhaling, letting that go. And then bringing ourselves back to this moment, the sweetness of this here and now. And exhaling, surrendering to the ever-present presence of gravity as it holds us here. And I invite us, Nikki, to bow to the space between, that wisdom that we create together. Aloha and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
Yay. Yay. And as always, I'd love to offer up a few sentence stems. That's kind of the foundation of how I'm doing my intentional interviews. So, Nikki, how would you complete this? As I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing.
Excitement, delight, a little nervousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you make sense to me. A little excitement, delight, nervousness. It kind of, in my experience, my body kind of registers that all the same way. So.
Right.
Yeah. Where do you feel that in your body? I'm curious.
A little in the throat, mm-hmm. and just a little in the belly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the connection between the throat and the belly.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So the throat and the belly kind of showing up, bringing us to the moment.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing with that, in that it really is all the same sensation, excitement or nervousness, really the same feeling. What differentiates them a lot of times is the story I make up about it, right?
Right. So true. So true. We must pay attention to that story we tell ourselves, right? Because it can spin in a certain direction or the other. Which channel are we going to tune into today? So
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm tuning into the excitement because I have pure excitement to be able to share this space and time with you. And
thank you.
So the next sentence stem would be where I would like to be at the end of my career.
Yeah. And I want to be, I was thinking of that more in parentheses there, it was the end of life.
Yeah, okay.
So when I was thinking about that, I thought I want to be surrounded by family and friends, and I want to be teaching or explaining to my family and friends what I'm experiencing as I move, right? As I continue to move. So, that's exactly where I want to be.
Yeah. What I hear is that surrounded by love, family and friends, and awareness of what's going on and being able to share that with others. And
that's right. I've thought now a lot about how at my age, at this point in time, if this were like a football game, I'm heading into the fourth quarter, right? And so being very conscious about how I want to play this fourth quarter of life.
Yeah, yeah, the fourth quarter of life. I like that. I think of the seasons, going into the
Yeah.
fall, transitioning to winter, but thinking about the football, it's so hard not to ask, well, what's the score on the scoreboard? But that's not what it's about.
That's okay. Let me tell you, the score in the fourth quarter is much greater than the other three. Let's put it that way.
Right on. I get you. That makes a lot of sense. So, uh, given that, I'm guessing that where you are now is also where you want to be in the future, in that surrounded by love, being able to articulate your inner landscape, what's going on. And I'm curious, what's one thing that you'll do to continue to help perpetuate that, to continue to spark joy, to get that at the end of your life?
I keep thinking just continuing to trust the process, right? And doing exactly what I've been doing. There's no big change as far as that goes. Just continuing to trust the process.
Yeah, yeah. Trust the process. That's a good one. So I'm going to weave that into our topic of power and partnership. And I love to think of the relational field as that space between. So what's one way that you trust the process, that you weave that into tending to the space between?
Really having a relationship with attention or paying attention, right, to all. It's as much as there's the mindfulness in there, there's the awareness, it's just the paying attention.
Nikki, how do you know if you're paying attention or not?
Yeah, a lot of times I can feel it, right? There's a sensate feeling, to awareness in that way. What I've noticed is in this body, it may be different for other bodies sensationally, but what it feels like is when it feels like a push, right? I know that something's off track. But when it feels to me like this gentle pull, right? Maybe a come this way, but I know that there's an alignment.
I love that. That is so tangible and accessible. And I really want to highlight that for our audience today. My hope is that people, everybody's time is precious and valuable. And I wanted to give little digestible chunks of information with experts in the field of the relational world. And that idea of paying attention, bringing oneself to the moment. Am I pushing away, or am I feeling that gentle pull towards?
That's right.
That bid for connection, that leaning in, that turning toward, and that so dovetails with what you were saying about where you want to be at the end of your life, of being connected and being able to share with others what you're experiencing. Am I getting you?
You absolutely are.
Yeah. Is there more about that?
One of the things we were talking about, what's most important to me, right? It's just what you spoke, relationships and connection, and with everything. I feel like life is relationship. So relationship with myself, relationship with others, relationship with the environment, relationship with the divine, whatever it is that we call divine. So all of those things, and those are the things that are most important to me.
Right, right. Well, that makes so much sense that, we are relational creatures. And my hope is that as a culture, we're shifting into more of a relational paradigm. And, the intentionality of the power in partnership is not power over or that sense of dominance. It's the partnership. It's how do I advocate for your well-being? How do I receive the love that is sent to me? And I love your work in its focus on codependency. And I'm curious how we can tie that in, because sometimes my experience in working with couples is people don't really understand what codependency means. And I would love to hear your definition and help me understand if what I've been saying is on the right track, which is when loving you is hurting me. That's kind of how I like to sum it up.
Yeah. I kind of think of it a little more broadly, just even more broadly. A lot of times I hear codependency defined as with just another person or in the realm of person to person. I love to define it a little more broadly. And I'm with you. My experience is that it's a word for lack, it's for lack of a better word, that's been really bastardized, that all kinds of things have been thrown into the bucket of codependency, which makes it confusing. And I love to define codependency as the disease of the lost self. We lose ourselves, right? And given that, and any time that I look outside of myself for something that can only come from the inside, I'm in a codependent relationship with whatever that is. So I would assert that the root of any addiction is codependency, because that's exactly what I did in the throes of addiction. I looked outside of myself. I looked for a solution from the alcohol, the drugs, the cookies, it doesn't matter what it is. I've often said, I have very often been in a codependent relationship with Nordstrom's, right? Because, I hop in the Nordstrom store and I'm looking for that, whatever it is, the dress, the shoes, or any of that kind of stuff, to fix something, to make me feel better about something. And the solution's not there. It's on the inside, right? So I'm looking for something from the outside to solve, and it never works. It never works. There have been so many times even with Nordstrom's, I've been in the addictive cycle, right? I'll buy the thing and get that quick hit, that quick fix, and I get home and, why did I buy that? It's almost like a hangover. Right. Why did I do that? What have I done? Right? So it's the same thing. Anytime I look outside of myself for something that can only come from the inside, right, then I'm in a codependent relationship with what it is. And it's easy to do that with other people, right? Yeah, I expect another person, right, to be the solution for what can only come from the inside.
Right. I really appreciate that definition. I think that is a broader definition. It makes it more accessible because in some way, shape, or form, I believe we as humans can relate to that. Like, where have I looked out there to try to feel what's in here? And that idea of the lost self, we go looking for it wherever. And I too can relate to that, looking for it through the alcohol or the pint of Ben and Jerry's, getting chip-faced.
Yes, I love that.
And the buying as just a way of thinking that I was doing myself a favor. Oh, I'm not drinking anymore. It's been a decade. It's been 2 decades. I deserve this. I'm going to go do this. And I finally had to get to the point of, okay, I'm not going to fully commit. I'm going to hang it there and leave the tags on it and sleep on it and see. But, we don't get that return policy necessarily with relationships.
That's right.
We look. And my understanding of the romantic phase of relationship is our brains get hijacked with the chemical cascade of all that addictive process of this.
That's exactly what it is. The same thing happens with alcohol. The same thing happens. It doesn't matter what it is. Right. The brain gets hijacked.
Right. The brain gets hijacked.
Yeah.
And then oftentimes we fall into that power struggle. And then the person who was giving us the drugs, are basically our dealer, becomes the enemy and took it away from us. And so then that, I worked with a somatic practitioner a couple decades ago, and he used to always say, sometimes I just want to vaporize my partner. And he was a Hakomi specialist. I was like, I can't believe he's saying this. But just having that awareness of when does that sensation come up in my body that I want to push away, as you said earlier, versus gently come toward.
That's right.
And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your expertise around that sense of the embodied presence in relationship.
Yeah. And again, it is that I don't even know. The thing that I've discovered is when there is an awareness that I'm in the push, I'm in that place where I'm off course, that there are a set of tools that I can use to help bring me back on course, right? When I'm too far over here, or I'm too far over there, there's a set of tools. And ultimately, I love that phrase, let it begin with me, right? Let it begin with me, right? Let me look here first, right? Before I immediately begin to project or transfer or do any of those kinds of things. You know, go to the source right here. And so there's a set of tools now that I know that I can use once I'm aware. And the big step is awareness. Because like you said, our brains do get hijacked, right? Very quickly. And I am off on the path, right? And I know that doesn't. And again, a lot of it for me are very simple set of tools, right? One thing I got from the 12-step program that I absolutely love is the HALT. You know, don't let yourself get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So simple ways that I can care for myself in a way that's going to affect all my relationships. When I let myself get any of those things, or in any way, from the yogic perspective, they say we have not one, but 5 bodies. And when those bodies are misaligned, then, you know, everything gets off course in me, right? And in my world. Because when they're aligned, right, I see things completely differently. And hungry, angry, lonely, and tired can begin to create that kind of misalignment. I always say hungry Nikki is very different than satiated Nikki, kind of like the Snickers commercial, right? Where the guy says, you become another person when you're hungry, for example. But the same is for angry, lonely, or tired. When those personalities pop up, I am a different person. So just being aware of that, right, makes a huge difference. You know, I'll give you a little example that I'll use with that a lot. I can say I will teach a class, and there may be 100 people in the class. 2 of them come after, 98 of them come up to me after class and say, oh my God, it was great. It was wonderful. I loved it. It was great. 2 of them come up to me after class and say, you know, didn't get what I wanted. Wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I want my money back, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? And it depends on where I am, how I'm aligned, right? When I'm in alignment, I understand that everyone has their own subjective experience, right? And I don't exactly know what they're bringing into that subjective experience. And so I do, you know, what I've learned, you take what's useful from that and you leave the rest. I know what's mine, I know what's not. I take what's useful and leave the rest. But let me be misaligned and hear the same thing. Hear the same thing when I'm in that state of misalignment. I'm going to make up stories. And those stories really are, they never end in she lives happily ever after, right? They, you know, it's, you know, how I'm a horrible teacher. How am I ever going to make a living at this? Oh my God, if I'm not going to make a living with this, how am I going to eat? How am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to, you know, and they all end it, and I'm going to die, right? So, you know, the exact same circumstance, the exact same words. When I'm balanced, one way. When I'm out of balance, another way. Right? So my work is tending to me, and it happens in all relationships, right? You know, the exact same words, right? So my work is attending to me and making sure that there's a sense of balance there. And so I can respond in a way that supports what I say is most important to me, which are my relationships, right? And so,
yeah, it circles back and feeds that very thing that is what matters most, is the relationship with others. And so I love what you're saying. It's such a clear message, and your examples are so relatable, because when we look for that completion, you know, getting our lost self met out there, when I do that, it never gets me where I want to go. And
there you go. There you go.
Back to, okay, I just got to take care of my body temple right here, right now. And I'm going to share a brief story with you, Nikki, if I may.
I love it.
Right before this call, about an hour ago, my husband called from work. He was driving from one place to another, and he checking in. And I'm like, yeah, I'm running around. And I said, I feel like a kid before Christmas, because I'm excited about our call. We have dear friends coming from the mainland to visit, and I'm scrubbing the toilet. I'm like hauling around, getting all excited. And he said, have you eaten anything? Because
Uh-huh.
he's not familiar personally with the 12 steps, but he knows my recovery well enough. We've been together long enough that he knows I've got to eat. But in that acronym of HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, there's not the super anxious, stressed out, hyper one. Sometimes I throw in an S, like spinning out. And that's kind of where I was. And I said, well, I just finished my second coffee and I'm going, and I got texts, but I'm going to sit down and do my sadhana because I didn't do my yoga yet. And, you know, and I'm actually texting with Tommy Rosen, about to sit down and do his.
Love it.
And I'm feeling it in my body. I feel that in my, you know, that chest area gets a little tense. And I love using my body as a barometer to bring me back to the moment. And sometimes I can't tend to it, Nikki. You know, right now I still have that excitement right here, but to befriend myself in the moment, to still be present with. So it's like bringing ourselves along no matter what, to trust the process, as you said, suit up and show up and be here and recognize how I respond. I may have to like heighten up my awareness around that right now because I'm feeling a little high strung.
That's right. I love that. What a great story. And it just happened.
It just happened. I said, so let me go so I can do my yoga so I can get going.
That's awareness. That's awareness. Yeah. And it took your partner in order to, I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is about growing that conscious partnership. I can't look to him to help fix me, but he can help advocate for my well-being. And I can do so for him. And in that, I can't do this gig called life alone. It's not.
So important. You know, the phrase I always use with this, because most times you can't see the picture when you're in the frame, right? And you're in the frame, right? And he can say he's outside the frame, and he can say, have you eaten yet? You know, because he can see what you can't. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, that thing we'll often say in 12-step programs, no one can do it for you, but you can't do this one by yourself, right?
Exactly, Nikki. It's both and. It's an inside job, and I need you all to mirror back to me because, you know, it's often said that we don't really see ourselves, and what we spot in other people, we've got. So
that's right.
How to work with that. So I wanted to follow up on, Nikki, you talked about this set of tools, that the first step is you've got to have the awareness. And I'm curious if you could offer a few of those. I'm sure you've mentioned those in your examples in terms of some of the tools, but any other specific ones come to mind?
Yeah, which is why, to me, I'm so happy that you're bringing the yoga and the somatic pieces into this. You know, part of the big deal of that for me is my body's going to tell me first, and I know that, right? And my mind will rationalize and justify, right? Not to make my mind bad. It's not at all. It's not that. But its job is really to protect me and shield and all of that kind of stuff, and try to make sense of what comes in via the 5 senses. So it operates a different way than the body does, right? And so going to the body is so important. Is so important in this. And so some of the tools that from yoga, and I love that they come from that. Like the one that I know I use all the time is simply the breath and the way that we use breath. What I know is that when I consciously realign mind and breath, I'm present. You know, you have to be, because you can't breathe in the past and you can't breathe in the future. You can only breathe in the present moment. So when the mind and the breath are realigned, I have to be in present time. So just stopping to pause and realign. We call it the pause button, right? Pausing to realign the mind and the breath. And it's an easy enough thing to do because the breath is something I can always watch. It is like a little barometer. When the breath gets jerky or fragmented or jumpy or any of that, that's telling me a state of my nervous system, of what's actually going on in my nervous system. That's an indication that there's a little dysregulation going on in the nervous system itself. So just stopping to notice that, and that's the attention, the awareness, to notice that, And once I do, to use a tool like just pausing, grounding, realigning the mind and the breath and taking a big deep breath, it stops the time travel. Then I come present again. So, and I love that they're just these little tools, rooting and grounding, all of those kinds of things are just little tools that I can use to bring me back to the present moment.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I can never hear enough the reminders of the breath. It's like, I think we all need it. It's one of the most popular, accessible, free things we carry in our pockets at any time.
Free. It doesn't cost anything, and it's there, right? I don't have to search for it, right? I don't have to pay for it. It's always there.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when we have the good fortune of our beloved, whether it's a family member, just to remind us to breathe, or we sense that we're, getting a little, I love that image of time traveling, oh, well, when my friends get here, what about, nope, come back to the moment right here, right now. And recognizing that, to tether ourselves back, it's then that we can be open to what's going on with more curiosity of what's going on with the other. And then it's that relational field. It really, it's like it needs that fertilizer almost of each of us being fully present with ourselves. And when we can't, mirroring for each other to come back to the moment. And I'm curious, do you have any specific tools, Nikki, for partners to help each other get more present or tend to this space?
Yeah, I, again, love the tool of observation. And I love the idea in partnership of what we call creating safe space, right? So safety, of course, is relative, right? But, being in a context to create safe space with each other so that, it's not an environment where someone is fixing or controlling or managing or any of that, but to, with another person, create a container of safety that they now have permission, and I've got permission. We know that we got each other's back because we're in this container of safety. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
I love that image of safety because on my own, I can create a hostile or a friendly environment. But when I'm with others, I really need that safety. I need that sense of belonging and that sense that it's okay to be here, my whole self. Because then that's when that healing of the lost self can start to take place, right?
And it won't happen otherwise. Healing doesn't happen in unsafe space. Healing can only happen in safe space. Yes. It can only happen. And what I've also discovered is it's challenging for healing to happen in a hierarchy, right? That it can't, like you said this earlier, the phrase that I often use is it's not power over, it's power with, right? It's power with rather than power over. Yeah,
exactly. That's why we're really highlighting this power in partnership, because we think of power, it automatically kind of conjures up this notion of hierarchy.
Over, under.
Yeah. But there is this sense of power of exchange of energy,
Oh my goodness.
What fuels me? What inspires me? What sparks joy? And human beings are social creatures. We need each other. And to recognize that there is a deep need there. And it's an inside job. It's that paradox of both and.
Absolutely. Right on.
Yeah. I love it. We're totally, and this is part of that energetic exchange that happens in relationship, is the attunement and the neural firing of, we're getting each other. And it's like, there's something so inspiring about that, that as I can feel my nervous system aligning with yours. I can feel a softening in here. I can feel that sense of, just being held in the space. And being held is another tool that I love to use with my husband. And, sometimes I think I learned that from David Schnarch many, many moons ago. He said, hugging till relaxed, it's this notion that we can, there's a lot of energy coursing through us at any given moment. And sometimes it's more than it feels like I can handle. And just that hugging, when I have that opportunity, it's so great. I had the great good fortune the other morning by 8 o'clock, I'd already hugged 8 people or something. I was like, yes, I love it. It's like,
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
yeah, just that sharing of energies, helping to mitigate the darkness and spread the light. And it's a joy to share space with you and learn more about your wisdom. And I'm curious, as we start to wrap up our time together in our interview here, is there any sort of offering that you would like to direct the audience to? Anything on your website or an offering?
One of the things that we're going to offer, we do this little thing that I've loved. I actually compiled it from a lot of sources and then put some things in over the course of my work with thousands of people, at this point in time. Some things that I noticed from the work, but it was actually compiled from many sources. It's this thing we call the Codependency quiz, right? And so it's a list of questions. And the idea with this is that if you answer or give a positive identification with any more than 8 of, I think there are 30 questions on the quiz, 28 questions there are on the quiz. If you answer yes or identify with any more than 8, the idea is that codependency may be a worthy examination for you. It may be a way to look at this from an offering. And I always say, I would assert that anyone in the helping professions, that codependency is just a worthy investigation, a worthy examination. And the beautiful thing about it is, again, once I'm aware of it, there's a possibility to move beyond it, right? To heal and move beyond it. That doesn't happen without the awareness, right? And so we love to offer this to folks. And the invitation with it is, take it periodically. Do this periodically. Look at it this year, and then look at it again this time next year, and look at it again this time the following year, right? And some just to begin as a gauge, again, as a little barometer. So we love to offer that.
Great. Well, that is a generous offer. I think that's a wonderful tool that people can explore, and just the way you present it with such respect and curiosity. I really, really love that, Nikki, because there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no criticism. It's a worthy examination,
That's right. And thank God for the examination. The examination alone has catapulted my life to a whole different place. And I love that.
Yes. Well, you exude the gratitude and the goodness there. I love it. And that idea of doing it at the same time each year, because some years may be a little different than others. And I was just reviewing that. At my work with couples, I have an annual review, and it's just a list of sentence stems, and to be able to direct them when they watch this Power in Partnership to that link will be probably towards your website. We'll have that information in the email.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, I invite us to draw our intentional interview to a close, and I'll bring myself to a bow to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Mahalo nui loa. Great big thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing in the world. So grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.